Let's talk about the very first thing that happens when life knocks the air out of your lungs. Something changes, something breaks, something is lost. And in that moment, there's an instinct inside you that says, this can't be real. It's almost automatic. Our mind wants to push reality away because it feels unbearable. We think that if we deny it, maybe it will just dissolve on its own. But life doesn't work like that. You can close your eyes to avoid seeing the truth, but it's still there waiting for you when you open them again. This is why acceptance is the first and perhaps the most difficult step in dealing with stress and tragedy. Acceptance is not about liking what happened. It's not about agreeing with it or feeling okay with it. Acceptance simply means saying, this is what is. This is where I stand right now. That acknowledgement is the foundation upon which every other step of healing rests. Without it, you will spend your days trying to build a future while pretending the present doesn't exist. And that's like trying to plant seeds in the air. The irony is, many people confuse acceptance with surrender. They think if I accept it, I'm giving up. But in reality, denial is the true surrender, because it hands your power over to the pain without even confronting it. Acceptance is actually the opposite. It's courage. It's looking reality in the eye without flinching. It's saying, I may not have chosen this, but I will choose my response to it. Think about the moments in life when you resisted reality. Maybe it was a diagnosis you didn't want to hear. Maybe it was the end of a relationship you thought would last forever. Maybe it was the loss of someone who meant the world to you. In those moments, the mind goes into bargaining mode. Maybe it's not as bad as it seems. Maybe it would just go back to the way it was. But the longer you resist, the heavier the burden becomes. Denial delays healing. It freezes your life in the moment of the tragedy, and you end up living in a place that no longer exists. Acceptance, on the other hand, has a strange kind of mercy in it. The moment you stop fighting what is, you stop draining yourself with the impossible task of changing the unchangeable. That energy can then be redirected towards something productive, finding solutions, or seeking support, taking the first step forward. It's like standing in a storm and realizing that no amount of shouting will stop the rain. So instead you start looking for shelter. Psychologically, acceptance is the moment your mind shifts from, this shouldn't be happening, to, it is happening, so how will I meet it? That shift changes everything. It's not about erasing pain. It's about creating the mental space to actually work with it. And from a philosophical perspective, acceptance is deeply connected to wisdom. The Stoics centuries ago taught that peace comes not from controlling the world, but from aligning ourselves with reality. You don't have to agree with it. You don't have to like it. But you do have to meet it honestly. There's also a quiet dignity in acceptance. It's not dramatic. It's not loud. It's not a moment where fireworks go off in your mind. It's a small, almost imperceptible shift where you finally exhale and say, okay, this is where we are. Now what? And once you say that, you open the door to every other tool you will need: resilience, problem-solving support systems, even gratitude. I've seen people stuck for years because they refused to accept what happened. They thought that if they accepted it, they were betraying their dreams, betraying the memory of someone they lost, or betraying their own sense of justice. But here's the truth: acceptance doesn't erase your dreams, your love, or your sense of right and wrong. It simply allows you to live in the world as it is, while still working for the world as it should be. You can grieve deeply and still accept reality. You can feel broken and still say, yes, this is my life right now. That yes is not approval, it's acknowledgement. And once you acknowledge, you can adapt, you can pivot, you can rebuild, or you can start looking for the light instead of endlessly cursing the darkness. But none of that begins until you take that first step. Without acceptance, you're like a sailor refusing to admit that the tide has changed. You keep steering the boat in the wrong direction, exhausting yourself, and wondering why you never reach the shore. So when stress presses in or tragedy strikes, pause. Take a breath, and instead of asking life to undo what has been done, start by saying, this is my starting point. You may not like the starting point, but it is yours. Own it. Because only when you stand fully in your present reality can you begin to shape your future reality. Acceptance doesn't mean you stop feeling pain. It means you stop pretending the pain isn't there. And when you stop pretending, you finally start living again. That is the quiet power of the first step. And here's the thought I want to leave you with: you can't heal from a wound you refuse to look at. Look at it, even if your hands tremble. Name it, even if your voice shakes. That act alone, brave, small, but honest, is the first real victory over the weight you carry. One of the most dangerous traps we fall into after stress or tragedy is the question, why me? It's a question that feels justified. It's a question that seems like it deserves an answer. But in reality, it is a question that keeps us stuck in the past, in the moment before everything changed. It anchors us to a point in time where the wound was fresh, where the loss was unbearable, and it doesn't let us move forward. The truth is, life rarely gives us a satisfying answer to why me. Even if we could find an explanation, would it really undo the pain? Would it really restore what was lost? Sometimes we think that if we just understood the reason, the hurt would somehow soften. But that's an illusion. What actually happens is that we keep spiraling, searching for meaning in something that may never fully make sense. And here's the thing, why me is a backward-facing question. It's a question that points toward the past, toward what has already happened. And when your eyes are fixed on the past, you can't see the path in front of you. You might still be breathing, but you're not living. You're replaying over and over again. That's why the shift to what now is so powerful. It doesn't deny your pain. It doesn't erase your story. But it does pull you out of the endless loop of looking for reasons and into the realm of action. What now is forward-facing. It's a question that assumes life is still possible after the fall. It's a question that invites you to participate in your own recovery. When you ask, what now? You are, in essence, reclaiming your authorship over your life. You're saying, yes, something has happened to me, but I am still here. And as long as I am still here, the pen is still in my hand. You stop being just a character in a tragedy and start being the narrator who decides where the story goes from here. Psychologists often talk about locus of control, the belief about whether we have influence over the events in our lives. People with an external locus believe life happens to them. They are at the mercy of fate, luck, or other people. People with an internal locus believe they have power over their choices and responses, even if they can't control everything that happens. The question, why me, feeds an external locus. It reinforces the belief that we are powerless victims. The question, what now, strengthens an internal locus. It reminds us that we still have agency, even in the midst of chaos. This shift doesn't mean the journey becomes easy. Asking, what now, doesn't suddenly make the mountain smaller, but it does make you start climbing instead of just staring at the mountain and cursing its existence. And as you climb, you discover something unexpected, that every step forward builds strength you didn't know you had. There's a beautiful irony here. Many of the people we admire most in life, the ones who inspire us, are not people who were spared hardship. They are people who faced something devastating and still chose to ask, what now? They turned their wounds into wisdom, their pain into a platform, their losses into lessons. And that choice didn't come from some magical immunity to suffering. It came from the willingness to redirect their focus toward what could be done next. Philosophically, what now is an act of humility and defiance at the same time. Humility, because it admits that what has happened cannot be undone. Defiance, because it refuses to let that moment be the end of your story. It is saying to life, you may have shaken me, but I am still moving. And here's something important. What now doesn't have to be a grand, life-altering plan. Sometimes, what now means getting out of bed today. It means making a phone call. It means taking a walk when you'd rather stay in the dark. These small steps may not seem like much, but in the aftermath of stress or tragedy, they are declarations of life. They are proof that you are still in the fight. I remember hearing someone say, you can't always control the script, but you can control the next line you speak. That's exactly what now does. It gives you the next line, and the next, and the next, until one day you look back and realize that the chapter you thought would end you became the chapter that defined you. So, when life breaks something in you, don't stay in the question that keeps you chained to the past. Shift to the question that opens the door to your future. It will feel uncomfortable at first. Your mind will want to go back to, why me? Because it's familiar, even though it's unproductive. But keep choosing, what now? Until it becomes instinct. When life feels like it's spinning out of control, Our instinct is often to grab at everything at once, desperately trying to hold it all together. We want certainty, we want guarantees, we want to fix every broken piece immediately. But the truth is, in moments of deep stress or tragedy, most of what's happening is outside our control. The more we try to grip what cannot be held, the more powerless and exhausted we feel. It's like trying to catch the ocean in your hands. It slips through your fingers no matter how tight you squeeze. And this is where a very important truth comes in of when you can't control everything, you must anchor yourself in what you can control. Because even in the worst storms there are always small areas of your life where your influence still matters. Your thoughts, your responses, your choices, your habits. These may seem insignificant when compared to the size of your pain, but they are the only levers you have to slowly pull yourself back into stability. Think about it. Stress and tragedy have a way of magnifying the things that are beyond our reach. When you lose someone you love, you cannot change the fact that they are gone. When you face an unexpected financial crisis, you cannot erase the event that caused it. When you receive a diagnosis you cannot rewind to the day before it happened. But you can choose how you think about it. You can choose the actions you take next. You can choose whether you feed the fire of fear or the light of hope. Psychologists call this the circle of control. Imagine two circles, an outer one and an inner one. The outer circle is everything you cannot control, of other people's actions, the past, the weather, accidents, the economy, tragedies. The inner circle is what you can control: your mindset, your words, your routines, the boundaries you set, the way you treat yourself and others. The problem is when we live too much in the outer circle, constantly obsessing over what we can't change, we drain our energy and feed our helplessness. But when we live in the inner circle, pouring our time and focus into what we can change, we slowly regain a sense of power over our lives. And here's something powerful: your inner circle might seem small at first, but as you focus on it, it grows. For example, you can't control that you've lost a job, but you can control your daily structure, how you spend your mornings, the skills you decide to learn. And over time, those small actions start to open new doors you didn't see before. Control the controllables, and life begins to expand again. Philosophically, this is an act of discipline. The Stoics spoke about it often. Recognizing what is within our control and what is not, and refusing to waste our energy on the latter. It's not about ignoring reality. It's about choosing where to place your focus so that you don't drown in what you cannot change. There's a certain peace that comes when you say, this part of my life is not mine to control, but this part is, and I will give it my best. Anchoring yourself in the controllables is not just about survival. It's about slowly building momentum toward healing. Imagine being caught in a current. You can't stop the river from flowing, but you can choose how you move within it. You can let it drag you under, or you can swim toward the shore, one stroke at a time. Those strokes are your controllables. Small intentional actions that keep you from being completely swept away. And I want to be clear, focusing on what you can control is not about pretending that the big, painful realities don't exist. It's not about toxic positivity or forcing yourself to smile when your heart is breaking. It's about saying, I will give my attention to the areas where my actions can make a difference, no matter how small. That's how you begin to reclaim your life after it's been shaken. In my own life, I've seen that the people who recover best from hardship are not necessarily the ones with the easiest circumstances. They are the ones who master this discipline. They understand that control is a limited resource, and they spend it wisely. They stop fighting battles they cannot win, and instead they build victories in the spaces they can influence. Maybe for you, that means starting a morning routine that keeps you grounded. Maybe it's practicing gratitude, even when you don't feel like it. Maybe it's deciding to eat well, move your body, or speak kindly to yourself. These might feel small compared to the size of your problem, but they are the foundation on which you will rebuild. And here's the paradox: when you commit to the small of controllable things, you often find that bigger, uncontrollable things begin to shift over time. New opportunities appear, your resilience grows. You're better prepared when the next wave hits. You can't control the ocean, but you can learn to sail. So in those moments when life feels overwhelming, pause and ask yourself, what is still within my control? It might be a tiny list, it might be one thing, but if you pour yourself into that one thing, you will feel the first flicker of power return. And from there you can build. Pain has a way of changing the way we see everything. It can shrink our world, making us focus only on what has been lost, or it can expand it, pushing us to search for a deeper meaning we might never have looked for otherwise. In the immediate aftermath of tragedy, it doesn't feel like there could be any purpose in what happened. It feels senseless, unfair, and impossible to justify. And in many cases, you're right, it cannot be justified. Some things that happen to us are not deserved or meant to be. But here's the part that matters. While you may not have been able to choose the pain, you do get to choose what you do with it. That choice, to transform pain into purpose, is not about romanticizing suffering. It's not about pretending the wound is beautiful or that the loss was somehow a blessing. It's about refusing to let the pain be wasted. It's about deciding that if you must carry this, you will make it count for something. When we're hurt, our first instinct is often to close up, to withdraw from the world, to build walls so high that nothing can reach us again. It's a natural form of self-protection. But the danger of staying in that place is that the pain becomes stagnant. It festers, and in time, it begins to define us. Purpose is what keeps that from happening. Purpose is motion. It's the act of turning what broke you into fuel for something greater than yourself. I've met people who have gone through unimaginable losses. Losing a child, surviving war, enduring severe injury. And what struck me most was not their tragedy, but what they built from it. Some became advocates for others going through the same pain. Some created foundations, wrote books, or dedicated their lives to service. Others simply made it their mission to treat people with a kindness and patience that could only come from someone who truly understands what it means to hurt. These people didn't just move on from their pain, they carried it forward in a way that brought light into dark places. From a psychological perspective, this is called post-traumatic growth. It's the process by which people emerge from hardship not just having survived, but having grown in ways they didn't think were possible. They often report a greater sense of empathy, a clearer understanding of their priorities, and a stronger connection to the values that matter most. Post-traumatic growth doesn't erase the scars. It simply gives them meaning. Philosophically, this idea has been echoed for centuries. Viktor Frankl, a Holocaust survivor and psychiatrist, famously wrote that those who have a why to live can bear almost any how. He discovered in the darkest of places that meaning is not given to us. It is created by us. You don't wait for life to hand you a purpose. You forge it in the fire of your own struggles. And here's the truth of the transformation from pain to purpose rarely happens all at once. It's not a single, dramatic moment of enlightenment. It's a slow process, built choice by choice. At first, it might be as simple as using your own experience to comfort someone who feels alone. It might mean volunteering for a cause that resonates with your story. Or it might mean telling your truth even when it's raw and unfinished, because you know it might help someone else feel less isolated. Sometimes, the purpose you find isn't about changing the whole world, it's about changing one life. And sometimes that one life is your own. Purpose doesn't have to be grand to be powerful. What matters is that it shifts your relationship with the pain. You stop asking only, why did this happen to me? And start asking, what can this make of me? And this is important. Purpose doesn't mean the pain disappears. You can still have days where the weight feels unbearable. You can still grieve, still have moments of anger or despair. Purpose doesn't take those away. It simply gives you a reason to keep moving through them. Without that, the pain can become a pit that swallows you whole. With it, the pain becomes a path. I think that's the essence of this shift. You stop seeing your story as something that only took from you and start seeing it as something that could also give through you. The wound becomes more than a reminder of what you've lost. It becomes a reminder of what you're capable of creating, even in the ashes. So, if you are in a place right now where the hurt feels too heavy, I'm not asking you to force meaning into it today. I'm asking you to hold on to the possibility that one day, this very thing you wish had never happened could be the source of something good. Not because the pain is good, but because you are strong enough to shape it into something meaningful. And perhaps that's the most empowering truth of all. Life can take a lot from you, but it can't take away your ability to create meaning. No tragedy, no loss, no hardship can strip you of that choice. The question you must eventually ask is this: Of will my pain end with me, or will it move through me into something that matters? We often think of health in terms of our bodies. We brush our teeth, we wash our hands, we take showers. We maintain physical hygiene almost without thinking about it, because we know neglecting it has visible, unpleasant consequences. But here's the question, how many of us apply that same discipline to our emotional and mental well-being? How many of us make emotional hygiene a daily habit? The truth is, most people don't. We wait until something breaks inside us before we give it attention. We wait until the stress turns into burnout, until the sadness turns into depression, until the anxiety turns into paralysis. By then, it's not maintenance anymore, it's repair. And just like with physical health, it's always easier to maintain than to fix. Think about what happens when we neglect emotional hygiene. Every small hurt, every disappointment, every moment of stress piles up quietly in the background. We convince ourselves that we're fine because we're still functioning. But functioning is not the same as flourishing. Carry enough unprocessed emotion for long enough, and eventually it will demand to be felt, often at the worst possible moment. That's why daily emotional hygiene is so important. It's the conscious practice of clearing out the mental and emotional clutter before it becomes overwhelming. Just like we tidy our homes so they don't become unlivable, we need to tidy our inner world so it doesn't become unmanageable. This doesn't require elaborate rituals. In fact, some of the most powerful forms of emotional hygiene are simple and accessible to anyone. Journaling, for example, gives your thoughts and feelings somewhere to go instead of letting them swirl endlessly in your head. Meditation helps you notice what's happening inside without immediately reacting to it. Prayer offers connection and perspective. Even something as simple as taking a walk in nature can act like a reset button for your mind. And here's the thing, you don't have to feel broken to do this. In fact, you should do it most consistently when you feel fine, because that's when you're building resilience. It's a lot like strengthening your immune system. You don't wait until you're sick to start taking care of it. You nurture it every day so that when challenges come, you're better equipped to handle them. From a psychological standpoint, emotional hygiene works because it interrupts the accumulation of stress. Our nervous system wasn't designed to live in a constant state of alert. But the modern world often keeps us there. Notifications, deadlines, conflict, bad news on repeat. If you don't intentionally discharge that stress, your body and mind will carry it as if danger is always present. That's why people snap over small things. It's not about the one thing that happened. It's about the 100 things they never processed. Philosophically, daily emotional hygiene is a discipline of self-respect. It's saying, I matter enough to tend to my inner world. It's not selfish, it's foundational. Because when you're carrying less emotional weight, you have more patience for your family, more focus for your work, more presence for your relationships. Neglecting your emotional hygiene doesn't just affect you, it affects everyone who interacts with you. There's also a humility in it. When you practice emotional hygiene, you're admitting that you're human, that you can be worn down, that you need rest, that you're not invincible. Many of us resist this because we think it makes us weak. But the truth is, vulnerability is not weakness. It's wisdom. It's recognizing that you have limits and honoring them before you're forced to. And emotional hygiene isn't always comfortable. Sometimes it means facing feelings you'd rather ignore. Sometimes it means acknowledging truths you've been avoiding. But ignoring them doesn't make them go away. It just buries them. And buried feelings have a way of resurfacing at the wrong time. In times of stress and tragedy, emotional hygiene becomes even more critical. It's the thing that keeps you from drowning in everything you're carrying. You may not be able to change the circumstances, but you can lighten your load by processing as you go. That might mean talking openly with someone you trust, crying when you need to, or giving yourself permission to rest without guilt. These aren't luxuries. They're survival tools. One of the most profound shifts happens when you stop treating self-care as something you do only after you've reached your limit and start treating it as something you do so you don't reach your limit. When you maintain your emotional hygiene, you begin to notice early signs of stress before they escalate. You catch yourself before you snap at your children. You recognize when you're withdrawing before it turns into isolation. You address the problem when it's a small leak, not a flood. And here's the part people often overlook: consistent emotional hygiene doesn't just prevent breakdowns, it builds strength. Over time, you develop a greater capacity to handle challenges without losing your center. You become less reactive, more grounded, and more able to respond with clarity instead of impulse. So ask yourself, what am I doing every day to clear my emotional space? Am I giving my feelings an outlet, or am I just storing them in the back of my mind hoping they'll disappear? Because they won't. They will show up, either by choice or by force. And trust me, it's always better by choice. Make emotional hygiene as natural as brushing your teeth, not because you're falling apart, but because you want to stay whole. The world doesn't get easier. The storms will still come. But when you take care of your inner world, you meet those storms from a place of strength instead of depletion. Hope is often misunderstood. People talk about it as if it's something that appears when life is good, when the skies are clear, when the road ahead is smooth, when everything feels possible. But the truth is, that's not hope. That's comfort. Real hope is forged in darkness. It's born in the moments when nothing around you gives you a reason to believe of, and yet you decide to believe anyway. In times of stress and tragedy, hope cannot be left to chance. It's not something you simply feel. When you wake up one morning, it's something you practice. It's a discipline. It's a deliberate choice you make every single day, even on the days when it feels hollow. Because hope isn't about pretending everything is fine. It's about trusting that things can be better, even when they aren't right now. Think about it. When you're in the middle of hardship, the temptation is to measure hope by how you feel in the moment. But feelings are weather. They change, they shift, they move without your permission. If you tie your hope to them, then on a bad day your hope disappears. But when you treat hope as a practice, it becomes something you do regardless of the emotional forecast. You wake up and you choose to hold it. You choose to speak it. You choose to act in alignment with it, even if you don't yet feel its warmth. From a psychological perspective, hope acts like an internal compass. It doesn't necessarily change your current location, but it gives you a direction. It tells you, this is where we're heading, even if the map is still blurry. Without hope, the mind drifts. Your goals fade, your energy depletes, and your motivation weakens. With hope, you have a reason to take the next step, even if you can't see the whole staircase. Philosophically, hope is an act of resistance. It's a refusal to let the present moment define your entire life. It's saying to your circumstances, you are not the full story. This is why people in the most difficult situations, whether it's illness, loss, or oppression, are often the ones who cling to hope the most fiercely. They know that without it, survival turns into mere existence. A hope as a discipline means cultivating habits that feed it. For some, it's writing down 3 things they're grateful for each day, not because their life is perfect, but because gratitude strengthens the lens through which they see the world. For others, it's surrounding themselves with voices, books, and stories that remind them of resilience. It might be envisioning a future that feels distant, but allowing that vision to guide your daily choices. And here's the powerful part. Hope is contagious. When you practice it, you don't just carry it for yourself, you become a source of it for others. Sometimes people borrow hope from those who have more of it. Your decision to keep believing, to keep showing up, might be the very thing that keeps someone else from giving up. That's why hope is not just personal. It's communal. But I also want to be honest. There will be days when your hope feels like it's hanging by a thread. Days when you wake up and the weight of life makes it nearly impossible to imagine better days. Those are the days when hope as a discipline matters most. It's not about pretending you're okay. It's about saying, today I will hold on anyway. Even if all I can do is take one step, I'll take it. That step is hope in action. And sometimes hope doesn't look like optimism. Sometimes it looks like endurance. It looks like keeping the door open for possibility, even if you can't yet welcome it in. It's not always bright or joyful. It can be quiet, steady, and stubborn. But in its own way, that stubbornness is strength. I've learned that the most hopeful people are not those who have been spared hardship. They are the ones who have faced it and still chosen to believe. They've seen the worst and decided it will not be the final chapter. They understand that hope doesn't erase the pain, but it does make the pain bearable. So, in your own life, make hope a daily decision. Write it into your routines. Speak it out loud when you're tempted to withdraw. Look for it in small, ordinary moments: a kind word from a stranger, a moment of laughter in the middle of grief, a glimpse of beauty in a broken place. These are reminders that even in hardship, life still offers reasons to keep going. Because at the end of the day, hope is not nam in V. It's not blind. It's the most rational choice you can make when the alternative is despair. Despair says, there's nothing left. Hope says, there's something still worth reaching for. And as long as you have that, you have enough to take the next step. So hold on to hope, not as a fragile wish off, but as a daily discipline. Let it be the quiet fire that keeps you moving forward when everything else tells you to stop. And remember this, hope is not found, it's made. And every day you choose it, you are not just surviving your circumstances, you are shaping the life that comes after them.